Yeah.
Y'all ready?
You guys know the definition of government.
No.
Mm-mm.
Um, all right, all right.
I do want to hear that
People control.
though. Y'all ready?
To govern
Mind control.
to govern men.
Mind control. That's
Alright, y'all.
actually Latin.
We're good to go.
But all right.
Mm.
Basically waiting on this boy.
It's every day, every day.
All right, y'all. 3, 2.
Welcome everybody. Welcome back to another I See You Bro podcast with your boy Mars. We got Brenton and Yuri here, man, and I want to say that we're actually very excited to have Asa, the CEO. Yes, he's the CEO and founder of the CAN Foundation, the Contemporary Art Foundation or Arts Network. I apologize, but what the biggest thing is your mission is that stuck out to me is that you're bringing people together to create sustainable careers, and within creativity, and that's pretty dope. So shout out to you, and I appreciate you for joining us today, man.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So without further ado, we're gonna get up into it. Today's topic is spirituality. All right, and this is one of my favorite topics, and I think we got a good guest for it. He tried to get deep before we started the podcast, so I think you guys are gonna really enjoy what's going on here today. What I really want to get into more is I personally my spiritual journey, and I think everybody's spiritual journey is different, but not only is it different, I think everybody's definition and kind of understanding of spirituality is different, which actually makes it very interesting. So when we talk about spirituality as a whole, sometimes people will equip spirituality and religion together, right? I personally think there's a difference to them, right? And one can kind of dictate the other. So when I talk about my spirituality, I would say that, I am a Christian, but I'm a contemporary Christian, whatever that means. Everybody likes it the way they do. But my religion is Christianity, but my spirituality is doing things that kind of make sense towards my views on my religion. So kind of I want to ask you guys, I'll start with Brenton, kind of what do you think the difference, or is there a difference between spirituality and religion, and kind of explain your spirituality and your religion.
What is the difference between spirituality and religion? Okay, so when I think of spirituality, I think about like my relationship with my spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a spirit within my flesh, like that. I think that is separate from my humanness, right? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that spirit desires certain things, right? This spirit has the ability to attach to things in the spiritual realm, right? That my human being cannot, right? And so when I think of spirituality, I think about being able to attach to those things that I can't necessarily see, right? Religion. When I think about religion, it's like, well, how do I cultivate that spirit? What are the practices, like you said, that cultivate what my spirit, shall so desire? What does spirituality look like to me, to answer your question? Spirituality to me looks like quietness. Spirituality looks like a cohesiveness of like my heart and my mind.
Mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. Spirituality is a ease to my being. When I when I think about my religion, like you, like Christian, right? My religion is like I go to church, right? I believe in community.
Mm-hmm.
Do I necessarily believe in everything that the religion like promotes or how they promote it? No. But are there certain things like within my religion, Christianity, right, that my spirit can relate to? Yes. And so that's what it looks like to me. Like my religion looks like going to church and being in community. My spirituality looks like connecting with God, you know, on a one-on-one basis. Like, right, what's that alignment between me down, like me here as the person, and me with, with the spirit? Does that make sense? Am I making
It
sense?
makes a lot of sense.
I'm still uncovering what spirituality looks like for me, if I'm being honest too, because I was raised up in more religion and like in a more religious, and I don't necessarily know that it was meant to be that way, but I come the way that I was taught spirituality, in the way that I was taught religion, isn't necessarily what I practice now. So I say that to say I'm doing a lot of unlearning and like relearning when it comes to this topic.
That makes a lot of sense because I'll tell you that I was taught religion. And I think a lot of times in the black community, when you're taught religion, there's not really spirituality in there, right? It's just really just this is religion, and then this is kind of how we work in this religion, which gives you some spirituality, but it's not really kind of like separate. When you separate it, there's more power to your spirituality that can help your religion, right? And kind of your meaning for it. I'm gonna ask Asa, what do you think about? First of all, explain some of your spirituality and your thoughts on religion, and then kind of if you think there's a difference.
Sure. Let's see. I think it's like everybody's born, and then when you're born, you are something already, right? And then, depending on where you're born or when you're born or how you're born, you and who you're born to, and where all of that, you learn stuff, right? And the learning is socialization, the ways of being, right? Culture, religion, whatever. But the what you are and the who you are has nothing to do with that. And so that's kind of how I look at religion and spirituality. Like, religion is like the cultural practices that you learned, and spirituality is what you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think taking the time to learn out what you are is very important.
That's good.
And I even think there's a difference between what you are and who you are, right? That takes it like one step deeper, right? But I think what you are is the facts, and I think the facts can be discovered. I think part of it might be scientific, right? Part of it might be way beyond physical understanding, right?
Yeah.
But there is, I think, a pathway to understanding, and I think that spirituality is leaning on the what you are.
Man, it's gonna get deep. But yeah, I do think there's a difference between what and who you are too.
Yeah.
Right. And what is mostly I believe is scientific kind of genetic makeup. But there's a little bit more to that, like you said. So Yuri, what do you think about your own spirituality and your own religion, and then kind of how do those differ for you?
Similar to what was spoken here, religion was something that was taught, was Catholic in my household, but when I asked what the origin of that religion was for my family, it felt like the answers, I couldn't get a clear answer as to why we believed in what we believed in. And I just went through life. I was, as I got older, I just drifted away from religion entirely. Recently, for the better part of a year, I've been considering a religion. I want to practice Ramadan and kind of have that be like the entryway in to that. But for a long time, I just couldn't really subscribe to Christianity. Like, no offense to anybody that believes in that, because I believe everybody deserves to believe in something greater than themselves. You know what I'm saying? That's part of our driver here. Like, that's why we're here today. But I just lean so much more on spirituality, who I am as a person, really leaning on that. And just that connection, like you said, that one-on-one connection with God, with the universe, like really getting in tune with that. And just leading my life that way. I pray a lot. I pray in many different instances. I have not stepped foot in a church since before I joined the Navy, but I've talked to God more since I stopped going to church than every time I went to church, right? Like, so I feel like the connection has gotten so much stronger. I have gotten such a great sense of who I am as I've gotten deeper into my spirituality. But yeah, I just felt like I feel like there's a greater source. Like, we had this conversation before, and we don't need to get into that, like in terms of like God and all that. But like, it's like we all believe in a greater source, and it was just like, how do I build that connection with that source without compromising myself for like my integrity or what I believe in, right? So I just found my own way to do that, and that's where I am today. It's an ever learning experience. You tap into it more, you find out more about yourself as you continue, because like everything else, it's part of the journey, right? And you just you wake up every day, and the faith is going to be tested sometimes for long periods of time sometimes, but you got to know that in the end, it all works out in your favor. Mm-hmm. Whether you like the end result or not, it worked out in your favor. You needed whatever the result was.
Asa, I know Mars asked, the difference, but also, like, what does it look like in your life specifically? I don't know that you told us that part. That's what we want to know. Like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, man. Well, all right. So, I was raised sort of in a Abrahamic context, meaning in my like nuclear family structure, it was from age I guess 4 to 16, it was Islam, Sunni Muslim, right? So that was like going to the mosque, multiple times a week, having a community within that framework, which was an international community with a lot of Africans and people from the Middle East and different types of people. So it was that was an interesting cultural framework. But then also like extended family, like grandparents and stuff like that. It's like Christian stuff. So you get that, and then also we had a lot of like Rastafarian Rastas, like around us. So I grew up with a lot of that, and then like my life was like crazy dichotomous. So, like I went to a private school when I was in elementary school. That was a Christian school, all white school. So I was one of the only black kids. So I learned Christianity through their context, which
you're so I'm sorry to cut you off. You're so correct. I'm problematic.
I mean, we gonna get there. We gonna get there too. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to give you the facts before we go crazy.
Right. Okay. I got you. My bad.
But I learned Christianity through a Protestant context with white people, in the Southern white context, and then I learned Christianity through black people in the Southern context, and then I learned Islam through a Middle Eastern context. You know what I mean? But also, I learned Rasta through a Jamaican, West Indian, and black context, right? So that, and I'm an '80s baby, so like a part of my growing up consciousness was black consciousness, like being around like like when I was a kid, like I remember when Malcolm X came out. I remember when Sankofa came out. I remember when Amistad came out. Like my mom took us to see all of that stuff front and center. So like we were being downloaded by a lot of things. But my mom had a lot of Asian friends. My dad ended up, living in Japan pretty much the whole time I was growing up. So I had an Asian stepmom, and then my mom remarried. I had an Indian stepdad at one time. I had a Senegalese stepdad at one time. So I had a lot of mixed baggage, right? And through all of those people, you learn different things. Through all of those associations, you learn different things. But when I was 13, I met a guy who was a Vietnam vet, an ex-con. Spent 30 years in jail for murder. And then got out and started a fish farm. He was a real interesting guy.
That's cool.
My mom introduced me to him to write a paper, and I had to spend a lot of time with him when I was 13. And he said something to me that changed my perspective and my life around religion and spirituality, which as a 13-year-old was real heavy. He asked me one day after picking me up from school if I believe in God, right? And I didn't know where he was going with it, so it was kind of a scary question, right?
It always usually is.
Right? And so I'm riding with him, and he's like, yeah, what you think? And I was like, I gave him a generic answer. Yeah, I believe in God. Look at the sun, look at, everything moving, shaking. And he's like, yeah, but how you know? And then I had to think deeper. It's like, I guess I don't know. I guess this is what I've been taught. And it makes sense to me, so I'm riding with it. And he was like, yeah, that's kind of stupid, though. He was like, why don't you figure it out for yourself? Why don't you know? And he said, it's a big difference between believing something and knowing something. And he said, you should actually never believe anything that you can't know. And that changed my life as a 13-year-old, because most of what people know or believe in, they don't know. Right?
Secondhand experiences.
Yeah, or third.
Yeah. Or worse. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Right. Most what people believe in and understand and will put their life on, they can't know. They haven't proven it. Right. And so I would to answer your question, I think what I practice is something that I know. It's not really, I don't practice my beliefs. I practice my knowledge. You feel me? And I think that thirst for knowledge started when this gentleman told me that. His name was Shabaka Tecumseh. Shout out Shabaka. When he told me that at 13, this is the same year the towers went down. That was when that thirst for the answers
This is
started.
a terrible, probably not a terrible time, but a unique time for a person named Shabaka at that time. Yeah, as well.
I mean, so it was also for Muslims in the country. I don't know if you guys are privy to that or had any Muslim friends around.
My friend was Indian.
Yeah,
he went through that.
I was right in Jersey, so you see the treatment and the difference in treatment towards people because of how they look or what their name is or how they sound. After that happened, they became like public enemy number one for everybody because it felt a lot of people around my area lost somebody. Wow. Like I know people that lost.
You were up there.
Yeah, that lost somebody. So they were angry, rightfully so, right? But they were projecting that anger onto you know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to blame somebody, and it's a conversation for another day. But when the media portrays a certain enemy, it's easy for everybody to target that same enemy, right? Same thing with COVID, same thing with, it's a lot of things. Once they paint an enemy, it's easy for the collective public to do that.
The ironic part of that is that they say, and if you really think about that time, the country was never, or how do I say this? It was a time when the country was together.
Yeah.
Right. That's really ironic to say. Yeah. Right. As we're together, just beating
because
up on.
But you can go back in you can go back in human.
So they were saying that the time was the country was coming together at this time
because they had one enemy.
Exactly.
But you can go back in human history and see that on a lot of things, when they created one enemy,
everybody's
it unified.
That's
people,
more. Yeah. It was unifying the American people more than anything.
Yo. I learned a piece of history this year, right? Not to throw off, but I learned a piece of history this year, right, that actually will make you question every single thing in American history past 100 years old. double, triple times, right? In the late 1800s, there were, you know how like today we have like the prison industrial complex, right, which is a major institution, right? Well, back then you had multiple major institutions, right? You had the prison institution, right? But you also had the insane asylums, which were just as large of an institution, and you also had state orphanages, which were equally as large of an institution, right?
Crazy.
And then you also had a fourth institution, which maybe we used to hear from a lot of our grandparents growing up, but we never found out what it really was. They used to say the poorhouse. You ever heard of the poorhouse? Maybe heard your grandparents say, "Boy, you better save your money, you're gonna end up in a poorhouse," stuff like that. Well, the poorhouse was an actual institution. So you had these four major institutions. You had, and this was like in Reconstruction era, right? So you had the insane asylum, the poorhouse, the state orphanage, and the prison, right? So basically, this is alleged information, but there's a lot of documents backing this up, right? There was a whole movement of reformating and sort of reconditioning the American people, right, in the late 1800s, right, which had a lot to do with American expansion into new cities, but it had a lot to do with programming people's mind for history and industry, right? So the insane asylums were used to throw people away who were deemed unstable, right?
Or problematic.
Or problematic.
Yeah, that's where a lot of women ended up when their husbands were done with them.
Yes. The poorhouse was used to throw people in who couldn't pay their bills, right? So if you couldn't pay your bills and shit, they would actually put you in a place that's like a prison, right?
Damn.
Or if you were derelict or you know,
They were like
couldn't pay rent
concentration
or
camps.
something like that. Yeah, right. The orphanage was for all those people's children, right? So
Damn.
so if your parents got taken to the insane asylum or got thrown in the poorhouse, the kids would be taken by the state and put in the orphanage.
So Annie.
Yes. And
That's why those
actually,
movies are so big.
Those are factual joints.
Yeah.
They're not myths. And even the idea of the Cabbage Patch Kid, right? The Cabbage Patch Kid.
Those are orphanages?
And the
orphans?
stork, right? This is how they used to repopulate U.S. cities in the late 1800s. They would round these children up into orphanages, and then they would ship them on orphan trains to different cities, and they would give them to families. So people were mass adopting children, moving them around, but also they would lease these children out to factories because at that time there were no child labor laws.
Oh no, kids was working at 3 years old.
So you had these new cities, right, where they would ship thousands of children to work in these new factories, right?
Which is why they had to even make labor laws.
For basic free.
Wow.
You feel me? And the kids wouldn't have nobody protecting their interests.
At all.
You feel what I'm saying? So the kids not only would be getting shipped around to new families, having to do work, having to be slaves, getting abused, all types of stuff, but at the same time, they're being educated by the state. So they can be taught anything about their past. They can be taught anything about where they come from. They could be taught anything about their racial identity. They could be taught anything about anything. And so there was a mass movement in the late 1800s that locked up massive populations of people either in the poorhouse, in the insane asylum, or in the prisons, right? And the prisons were for people who broke any laws, but you have to consider at this time you got Jim Crow laws and stuff like that. So breaking the law could
away
be
for life all
as
the time.
easy as walking down the street at the wrong time,
Right.
or like looking at the wrong person at the wrong time, or being able to read in some cities, right? And so I say all of that, right? And I hate that I had to go on that tangent, but I say all of that in terms of looking at American history. It's hard to really say what the truth is because there was a massive retelling of the stories, a resetting, so to speak. And it goes deep, man. I mean, it goes deep into the architecture, Like some of the architecture in this country, you will look at, and they'll tell you that it was built 100 years ago, 150 years ago. But then when you really start rationally asking yourself, how the hell was this thing built 150 years ago before modern technology, right? Like how? How? And then looking at the way the buildings are, some of them look way much older than they're accounted for, right? So then questioning what was really in America before all of this and all, it just
What
it
did they
just gets
take?
deep. So that's why it goes into all of that to tie it back into this spirituality thing, right? The question of who you are, right, versus what you are is a big difference, because who you are, somebody can tell you, more or less, right? Because who you are is oftentimes based on your racial identity, your religious identity, your economic identity, your location. You know what I mean? All of these, your national identity, all these different.
Somebody else's perception
Yeah.
of who you are already.
Yeah,
These
right.
tangible things.
Right?
Yeah.
What makes you black?
Yeah.
What makes you human? What makes you a man? Right? Those are all labels that somebody came up with to identify something that they were trying to understand. But the thing is, we have our own shot at trying to understand this thing, just as any of the uncountable amount of spirits who's walked on this thing, right? So I can come up with new definitions. I can come up with new labels and new words and new ways to think about myself, which can break the frame of the concept, right?
Whatever you already know.
So even right, talking about God is a frame of frame of reference for something much deeper, right? So like we can say God, right, and we'll know what we're all talking about, more or less. But we all might mean something vastly different.
I See You, Bro is brought to you by the Can Foundation. The Can Foundation is an arts nonprofit organization founded by artists for artists.
The CAN is dedicated to building sustainable careers for the creative class through artist development, arts education, and public art projects.
By creating a community, they empower artists, foster creativity, and contribute to the sustainable growth of the artistic ecosystem at large. To learn more about the Can Foundation, visit their Instagram, Contemporary Arts Network, or their website at thecontemporaryartsnetwork.com.
I had this exact conversation. Jesus and God is somebody completely different to each person.
But we had that conversation in the test trial where we were like, look at Brandon. I was just gonna say how I felt that God was a label we tried to put on the source to try to understand what it is, because we truly don't know. It is way more powerful. You're not gonna sit here and tell me you know who God is, what he, she, it is. You're not gonna sit here and describe that to me and tell me that you're right. No human is gonna sit here and do that.
But the best part is they are right to themselves. That's their God.
But we just don't know. It's like the wind, dog. We can't see it, but we feel it. So, Brenton, you can have your opinion.
Let me actually come into this, because the next question is kind of, and thank you, Asa, because you kind of made the sense of when you don't have spirituality and you just live in religion, people can tell you who to be, how to walk, right? And then they give you the spirituality, right? Instead of you, because spirituality is a self journey. It's a kind of something that you stumble upon while doing your religion or learning your religion. And I really think it's super unique, because I tell people this all the time. Who are we to think that the religion or the Bible that our parents grew up in and put us in the church of is the right one? We just won the lottery. Uniquely enough, you were able to see so many different religions growing up, right? And that way you were able to hopefully learn and then kind of choose what made sense to you.
Sure.
So what I want to ask you, Brenton, as we're talking about Morgan, we know you are the not more religious, but you are well moving in religion right now, right? Well, you in certain respects. So let me just ask this. I'll ask you this: why do you follow your spirituality? Why is it the way it is? And then why do you follow the religion the way you do?
Well, I follow spirituality because religion had me what's the what's the proper way to say this? That it had me.
Had you
In a
effed up?
chokehold?
Yeah, exactly.
In a chokehold.
Because I'm
Don't,
actually.
don't even curse. Just say
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
were-
I'm trying to keep it
You
clean.
felt it
because-
here though, right? Like eventually you felt it boxed up.
So I don't tell this story often, but I was a youth pastor at a Presbyterian church. White, conservative, a whole lot of rules.
Mm.
Like, that's what it was. I loved it though. It was my experience. You know, you put a black man anywhere, he gonna thrive.
That's true.
That's just what it was. And so, I watched that church go through a horrendous split. That was maybe in about 2020. I watched it go through a horrendous split. I not only lose my community, because when you work at a church, when you work in that space, and you know religion, right? Like,
Mhm.
especially Christian religion, right? When you got to be there 5-6 times a week, and you
Especially
don't,
if you're a trustee or something.
exactly. And so that's
I just left church before coming here.
exactly. So anyway, I not in that situation of me watching that church go through a split. I lost my community. I lost my job, so my financial stability, but I also lost like what I thought was my foundation. Because I was like, if this is what I believe or what they're saying it is, then how can it be this? And because there's a mix up here, it's obvious you need to go on your own journey.
Mm.
And then me going on that journey, I was like, oh, yo, do you even really believe in Jesus Christ?
There's a lot more.
Do you
to
believe?
it. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, bro. Let me ask you this question, right? And I'm not trying to,
Go
I know
ahead,
y'all
man.
the
Go ahead.
hosts.
Go ahead.
That's what it's about.
If somebody was to ask us to recount tonight's experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's, a whole room full of people in here, right? But beyond us on the camera. Everybody's going to have a completely different narrative, right? And the narrative might mirror, it might have similar elements.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But because I'm sitting right here and because I had the life that I've had, right?
It's going to look completely different.
Right. I'm going to talk about it differently, and I'm going to log it differently. I'm going to think about it differently.
You're gonna receive it differently
And
too.
I'm seeing you from different angles, right? My bro over there is seeing us from a different angle.
Right.
He's seeing your different side of the face.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like he's even memorizing this differently.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? Like, and everybody has their life experience that's actually sort of really the lens at which we're coming to this conversation with, right?
Yeah.
And so there's an interesting thing at play, because if we're going to talk about something, right, we can only at best hint at what the thing is, because we all have different understandings of what that thing is, right?
Right.
And so there's this philosophy that I love to think about from time to time, because it's a very close mirror, in my opinion, to like the deepest level of all religion, right? And I might argue, right, after, in my life, having gone through and studied many spiritual systems and religions, right, I might argue that the deepest level of the majority of all of them are the same, right?
I agree with that.
And they're trying to teach the same truth. Now,
See,
what that truth is, right?
That is true. I can subscribe to that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right? No. There's this idea. You guys ever heard of solipsism? So in popular culture, where you might have heard solipsism referenced is in the Jay-Z and Frank Ocean song on Jay-Z's
Bike?
about
Church in the Wild.
not staining his tuxedo at the Basquiat show. You know that song?
Yeah, that's no church in the wild. That's my song.
So solipsism is said in that hook. Frank Ocean says solipsistic thoughts or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So solipsism is a philosophy that states that there's nothing in the entire universe that you can prove to be true other than your own awareness. Other than your own conscious awareness, you can't actually prove anything outside of you to be real at all.
Literally. Even
And
your own memory, sometimes you can't even prove that to
nothing,
be true.
nothing. And the
That's kinda-
reasoning why, right,
Yeah.
is because every single thing has to pass through your own senses, right? Meaning your smell, your eyes, has to pass through your brain. Every single thing. The only way to test anything in the universe, you have to test it with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's no way to actually prove that anything is separate from you, is actually not you,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no way to prove it. And so when you look at the deepest portion of every religion, right, and even what Jesus was saying, right, I and the Father are one. There's no separation, right? Whatever the Father hath, I also have, right? Also speaking to things like he who hath, all shall be given. He who hath not, all shall be taken away, right? You got to go into the deeper meaning of those scriptures, right? Because I think what's being spoken of, and this is just my humble opinion, right, is the fact that, and I'm not going to say the fact that, what's being spoken of, in my opinion, is the idea that the true nature of all things and people is the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that one thing is the only thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you develop an understanding, right? And I think this is what Jesus was trying
Your
to
own
say.
understanding.
An identity, rather, right? When you stop identifying with the little you, right? Who is maybe Asa,
Right.
right? Like Asa is the little me. And this fictional story of my life history, right? Which I would say is fictional because I can only tell you based on my perspective. But my mom is going to tell you a different story, and
Mm-hmm.
my brother's going to tell you a different story, and my homie's going to tell you something else about me. So what is the real truth? You know what I mean? Ain't none of that shit real, right? The only truth is I and my source are one thing, and my source is the actual source of all things. And so my true identity is that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to take on any other identity is a false narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go along with that for shits and giggles and for fun, right? But if I was to say out loud, I'm God, right? Everybody here starts shivering in their boots.
People, I don't
But I'ma say
understand
it
that
out loud.
though. I don't
Mhm.
understand that though
Right?
because each and every single one of us has
So-
God inside us though.
So to your point, all of what you just said, I agree. I agree. From the aspect of it takes a certain level of spirituality to know that and to be
Mhm.
comfortable with that and to sit in that and to realize
God body, my brother. Everybody got it.
All
But
right.
not everybody subscribes.
but some
to
of
it.
y'all be
Yeah.
taking it too far. I'm
But
gonna
it
just say
doesn't
that.
stop them
How?
from being it.
Because
though.
they're not really because they're not really understanding it.
they're-
They're
The culture has even flipped spirituality.
Yeah.
Like
they're like it's the same thing as cultural appropriation. They're just basically taking advantage of a time.
Yeah, but I feel God by it's within all of us. It's within
Yeah.
all, and I mean that in saying the spirituality, like you said, we are connected to the source. It is one. When we set our intention out into the universe,
Mhm.
this manifesting thing that people think is just a wish,
Mm-hmm.
it's really you setting your intention out into the universe. This shit here didn't happen by accident,
No.
dog. I've been talking about some shit like this
It
for
was created.
years.
Yeah, what are we looking at right now, actually?
Like,
All right,
what-
let's try to describe what this moment is. Like, even on a physical level. Let's look around the room, right? Like for me, I'm seeing what's in this room, right? And I can tell you what's behind all of this.
Mm-hmm.
You feel what I'm saying?
at
And
the
it's-
end of the day, it's one thing, and it's
what is it?
all of us are here to help people
Okay.
on that common ground, and that's what I feel. But
From-
that's
I
my
mean, but-
perspective.
But I was just about to say that
Mhm.
from it's
We all gonna have different
it's
answers.
all gonna
Yeah.
look very much different.
Yeah.
But the one commonality, is that a word?
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay, cool. So I be
It is
thinking,
today. It is today.
cool. The one commonality, like, and that I respect
That's a big word for
about the
Elmo.
space in the context of spirituality is like it's all trying to say the same thing essentially, and it takes a spiritual individual and a spiritual man to say, hey, it like we probably trying to say the same thing, but we're just because of where I come from and what I believe, we might be coming from two different avenues to meet at the intersection.
But to his point, if we dig deeper, if we're probably at the root level on the same page because we're here aligned
Yes.
Right.
for the same cause.
Right.
Like we each have very different backgrounds, yet we're here aligned for a common cause, a common reason, common purpose, right? And that's where I feel spirituality comes in, where it's like we are nothing and everything at the same. Like we are like everything has life, everything is connected to one another. Like the frequency and vibration we're on, it's matched. That's why we're here. That's why we've been able to do the work we do. The frequency we're on aligns with everyone here. That's why we're all on the same plane now. Like that's what brought us together. And I feel like when we tap into our spirituality, we get a better sense of discerning who's on our frequency.
So
and
I want
who's
to,
not.
Lynn, I want to ask you something, but I want to ask why you do what you do spiritually and religiously. But I want to get back to you on like you were talking about how everything broke down, right? And
So
so,
to-
but how'd you come back? Because I think it was stronger, right?
To y'all's point, and then Asa, I'm gonna throw it to you because I know you had something to say.
Yeah.
But you had something to say.
Right.
No, it all broke down. And to your point, I was left with nothing but my innateness and my oneness to like, what do you know? What do you feel in this moment? What do you actually believe?
Good questions.
Yes.
Aside from what you've been taught, aside from what you're being taught, I'm still learning. Like I have to unlearn stuff every day in the culture where it's like, so to your points,
Yeah.
everything had to go
Yep.
before I was stuck with self to figure out who my spirit was and who my spirit wanted to be, what it actually desired outside of what I was being told. And a lot of people and a lot of men don't get that opportunity. They don't get an opportunity to sit with it. Generally takes you being stripped of everything before you are left to really check your spirit. And so that's really why I'm able to have the conversation about spirituality, because my religion actually don't really want to have this type of conversation, right? I'm cool with that. Everything ain't for everybody. I'm going to stand on business. They going to stand on business. You feel me? Everybody standing on business.
Yes.
So that's what we finna do. That's who my spirit is.
Yes.
Yeah.
My spirit is actually confrontational as hell.
Yeah.
I want to fight.
And, yeah.
You know, but anyway, that's how it all had to. I had to be stripped away. Asa, I felt like you was about to.
Man.
You a preacher, low key.
Nah, my guy.
That's
was
why
just,
he was that in
my
the
guy was just
drama
going
thing.
on some points there, because like you said something, and what you just said was right and exact too. But my brother was saying, he said you said we are all nothing and something at the same time, right? And that just resonated with me so hard, because when we go back to this thing of like what we are, right? What everything is atoms, right? And atoms on a physical level, right? On a purely physical level, quote unquote, right? Everything is atoms. And atoms are broken down into even smaller components called protons, neutrons, and electrons. This is some basic stuff that we learn probably in elementary school or middle school, right? But how often do we take that really elementary teaching that we learn and apply it to how we're dealing with things?
Almost
right
never.
now, right? Because atoms behave in a certain way. Protons, neutrons, and electrons behave in a very specific way. And if that is the building block, not only of our entire body, physical body, but also of every single physical and invisibly physical thing like oxygen and gas and all that stuff, if the basic building block is atoms, then we have to do some studying
on atoms
of how atoms behave.
and how they react to things.
You see what I'm saying? And my bro was elaborating by using words like frequency and things like that. So to look at atoms, right, and to look at electrons and valence electrons and things like that, they deal with frequency, right? But if one was to actually observe the life of an electron, right, every moment it is popping in and out of reality, right? If you actually put a microscope and observe electrons, they are popping in and out of reality every moment, right? So to say something is physically what it is only a perspective, right? And so if you look at one atom is vibrating at a certain rate, right? If we look at multiple atoms that are vibrating at the same rate, they become compound elements. You know what I'm saying? When atoms are vibrating at different rates, they repel each other, right? They're not able to link up. When they vibrate at the same rate, they can link up, right? So looking at that, how we deal, right?
But let me. They also, and this is to the point, kind of what you're making is, they all are on the same vibration, right? And they're being exposed, and they're on the same vibration. However, their journey's different. The atoms aren't necessarily moving. But moving the same way, and that's the most interesting part, is that people don't understand, is that even though we're on the same vibe, like you mentioned, we're all here for different reasons, but for that one main reason, on the same vibe, right?
Yeah, like
In
we
different
came from
journeys.
different paths, but one thing led us here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about that, right? If we're all made of atoms, which are then made of the smaller things, like, then we're popping in and out of reality every single moment. Truly, factually, actually. Every single moment.
I feel that.
I'm a brand new person. And
You
the
can
only thing, no, whether you want to believe it, control it, or not control it, whether you say I'm going to consciously do this, or whether you never think about it ever in life, right? Every single moment, you are a brand new person. Every single moment. And the only thing that is connecting you or giving you identity is a story.
Yep.
That you adhere to every time you wake up.
Right? It's a story you telling that's being reinforced by the people, right? Reinforced by the things that you put in your life. Reinforced by the words that you use, right? And so thinking about this, right? You asked me what my religious practice is. Right? Now that we've been talking, I think I can land on something, right? Because I like to stay away from labels, because it's hard to describe something with labels sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But for the basis of this conversation,
General
I'll give it a label,
understandings
right?
help, yeah.
I'm a magi, right? Now, what is a magi?
I just learned about magi.
Right? Okay, my man, right? So if you read the Bible or you study ancient, Abrahamic or whatever, you know something about the magi, who was a priest class, right? Now, the magi, when you look at the word, right, you got to go deeper, because magi is also the root word of magic, right? And it's also the root word of imagination. See what I'm saying?
They were, for people to really understand, by the way, magi, biblically and, just throughout history, have been sought out and destroyed, just to let you know, as groups, because they were always on to something and doing certain things that kings didn't like.
Thank you for that context. And that's actual factual right there, where he just added to that. Because the magi, what their mechanism is, right, what they practice is magic. The magi practice magic. And the mechanism of magic is the imagination. And man is actively using magic constantly. You know what I'm saying? Whether you want to believe you are or not, whether you know you are or not, whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, everyone is using magic, right? Yeah. And magic is the byproduct of your imagination. So everyone is actively using their imagination. But here's the thing. Your imagination is an entire world. It's actually not just in your head. It's actually an entire real world.
Yes.
Just as real as this physical world.
Yes.
Right? And we live in both worlds simultaneously at every single moment. At every moment, there's one foot in your head and in your heart, right? And there's one foot in this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Narnia. In Narnia. Yeah.
And, right, I would contend by saying, right, that whichever world you put more emphasis on, both worlds will be dominated by that world, right?
Yeah.
So if you put more emphasis on the physical world, right, your imagination will start to be dominated by the things that you're experiencing.
Man, stop
right?
giving away the secrets.
Hey, look, but this is why I say people
people
in
you
insane-
giving away the
Hey, look.
secrets, bro.
people in insane asylums and stuff like that. This is why the saying is ignorance is bliss. Because when you're ignorant to stuff, you just live up here in that area, right? So I think people in an insane asylum have like one of the most peaceful lives. You would think the opposite on the outside looking in, because they're locked down and all this other stuff, but they're living in here.
I would still not want to ever be in an asylum.
But you wouldn't. But if you're living in here, you're not in an insane asylum.
Well, here's the thing. I can be completely living in
nigga,
here
if I can't go to
and
the
living in
store
here.
and grab something that I want to eat, because I'm in an asylum, I'm in an asylum.
I see you as in an asylum. But if you don't see yourself, one flew over the cuckoo's
I see
nest?
what you're saying.
Nah, I know what he's saying. I'm just fucking with
No,
him.
but I feel you. But people need to hear that because
Nah,
most
nah, I
people
know.
were saying it like the way you're saying it.
Nah, I know.
No, they're in an insane asylum, but they might not be.
I See You Bro is brought to you by City Center at Oyster Point. Discover the peninsula's best kept secret at City Center at Oyster Point in Newport News. Experience their growing culinary scene with new restaurants such as Satay and Amaro Italian Bistro, or grab small bites at Tinto Wine and Cheese.
City Center regularly hosts events like free fitness classes, open mic night at Cure Coffee, and Latin dance night at Salsa's Mexican Grill. You can even treat yourself to some self-care at the Eyelash and Eyebrow Bar, or catch a movie at Cinemark. There's also the Contemporary Arts Network Gallery, a haven for art enthusiasts.
City Center isn't just a hotspot. It is the up-and-coming foodie paradise and Peninsula's best-kept secret. Whether you're going out for date night or family-friendly fun, City Center is the gem you've been looking for. Stop by and discover why City Center at Oyster Point in Newport News is your perfect destination for any occasion. For more information, check out their website, citycenter@oysterpoint.com, or give them a follow at City Center at Oyster Point.
But
My grandmother said to me, and I'll never forget it, and it goes along the lines with what you're saying, like your imagination. She said, your brain is meant for beautiful things. It's not meant for trash.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, every time a negative thought passes through me, I'm like, nah, my brain isn't for that. My imagination isn't for that. And to your point where it's like, I just learned that this year, bro, like
so
last
important.
year.
I literally, whenever I thought something negative, I would just say I love myself. Literally.
Yeah.
Like that was my key until I stopped.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah,
For
No,
black
you
men,
gotta find those things.
for black men, like to your point, learning that when you said give away the secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're like the lead in homicide and going to jail and depression and suicide and all of the fucking destructive categories, right? Which is a cause which is caused by anxiety, depression, right? Now it's clinic, everybody's on fucking meds, people taking drugs, people going to church to try to figure out how to solve their anxiety. Yo, it's one simple fucking way to solve your anxiety. Stop worrying
Mindset.
or thinking about the future.
Mm-hmm.
The future doesn't exist.
Or the past.
what'd you say? What'd you say at that at the can event?
What's that?
The only real time is
It's right now.
It's right now.
When you
yeah.
literally like you people say worry, oh, I'm worrying about you. I'm worried about you, right? Or I'm worried about this thing. Or I'm worrying about these bills. I'm worrying about this. Or I'm worried about that. Or I got this thing coming up. Or all of this shit that you're worried about, which is causing you anxiety or frustration or depression, right? Or shit that happened in the past. Damn, It's on me still. It's on me still. The only reason any of those emotions are happening because you're not right now. You're
That's-
not in right now.
That's a lot of people's problems. So
That's
as we're
majority
talking
of
about
people's
that, let me
problem.
ask you this, Erie, since we're on that, because that's literally like you're saying how people are on drugs and doing this and not really understanding their reality is here and their mindset is here, and that doing things like how you just said was that I'm not going to allow this idea to pass through my head. I hear it, it's here, but I'm going to throw it out. And then I'm going to think positive things like how you just said, I love myself. And so as we're sitting there, is there a correlation in the fall of religion in society, as we're talking about society just either being religious or not? Sometimes some people would say we're in the most demonic age we are, right? Which throws you out of spirituality and religion. But I think spirituality could be demonic. But what would you say about that? The rise or the fall of it in this space?
I would say that we are in a time where kids don't necessarily feel like they have to adhere to the religious beliefs or practices that their parents are trying to instill in them, like maybe we were or our parents were. We're in an age where it's filled with information. So there are pros and cons to that. It leads people to be more curious. What else is out there? I want to subscribe to something different because I don't particularly like what's being taught here, my experience here with this religion, So I just feel like we're in an age where there's a lot of confusion, right? People don't have a steady set of rules or codes to live by. I fortunately created that for myself when finding spirituality, right? To kind of learn who I was. I knew in order to be the best version of myself, there was certain disciplines I needed to take. There was a sense of strictness I needed to have with myself, a certain standard I had to hold myself to. Majority of society, I feel like they're looking for the answers externally when they should be looking within. It all starts within.
So there's not a lot of spirituality going on.
I mean, you can say that because you get glimpses, whether you tap into it or not. Life is going to show you glimpses of your spirituality, your intuitiveness, right? Your gut feeling telling you something. Like, you're going to feel that. I just feel like as time goes on, the less you tap into it, the less you have that ability. So I don't know. It might be a mixture of those things. It might be a mixture of people really trying to find what is for them and not really subscribing to the norm of, you're a Christian because your mom and me are Christian and your grandparents are Christian or whatever the case is. Like, for us, it was Catholics. Like, it was just everybody was Catholic. I'm like, well, why are y'all Catholic? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't know. So I'm one of them. Like, I was curious. I'm like, what else is out there? And I found that there's things in a lot of different religions that I believe that resonate with me. There was not one particular that I could fully subscribe to yet, but it was just like there's things that I could get from each one, and I'm like, damn, yeah. So like you were saying, at the base level,
Things
it's
are
all
already
the same.
happening.
But no, it's all the same in terms of like they're all trying to help people be better humans. Like, I feel like reach their best self, right? They just all go about it their different way.
I tell people that all the time.
So
too.
that's why I just leaned into spirituality. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, to answer your question in short, I just feel like it's people really trying to find who they are outside of what they've maybe learned or subscribed to, and people really having to look within for their answers rather than externally, and really tap into their spirit and kind of gain those answers from there. Because everybody's guilty of that probably more before their spiritual journey. So that's what I think. Probably a mixture of those two.
You said a lot of people are confused, and I think that is it. And you said they're looking for people to tell them, and I think that's where religion is so successful, right?
Yeah.
But
people want to be told what
exactly
to do.
And then what do you have with most religions? You have a pamphlet, right, which is the Bible for most people, and it tells you exactly what to do. And so I feel like that is easier for people. But when, like we were mentioning about you, Brenton, and when it falls down, when you start questioning because of something, right? Because some people's biggest thing is why they question their religion is when somebody passes, right? Somebody close to them, or if something really goes terrible, and it's like, is there somebody up there doing good for me if this bad thing can happen to me?
But that I've always had conflict with that. I'm sorry, but like, and I want to get your perspective on this too, Brenton. But it's like, why do people think God is only supposed to do good?
Yeah, that
Why do you
You
put
see what I'm
God,
saying?
why do you put God into question when somebody dies, like he didn't birth you? Like a spirit may live on, but it's like I've just always been confused by the fact that you have to accept that beautiful, good, bad, ugly, God is all that.
There's always an opposite.
Yeah, God is all that.
That coming down to the neutrons and electrons, they're
So-
positive and negative.
So yeah, that's something that I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you on that.
You said best self. It's like how do you know your best self if you don't know your worst self? And so you gotta love actually and indulge in your worst self
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah,
in order to know your best self.
yeah.
And-
I didn't start achieving leaps in becoming a better version of myself until I accepted the worst parts of myself for what that is and what that looks like. Because for a long time we get scared of that. Like I can't be that.
Yeah.
Why am I that? Right?
But then it comes from questioning.
Yeah. But
That's
it's like
big.
when you accept that and you're just like, I can use this, whether it's this energy that I get from this, whatever it is, like this darkness, you can transmute it and make something beautiful out of it. But like you said, it's all opposites, and it's all pretty much your intentionality with the energy and where your focus is on that. But yeah,
No, that because you're
Yeah.
absolutely making a lot of sense, and to your point, back to kind of Brenton, and you bringing yourself back, right? Because for you to go through a time frame where you thought you knew what was going on as far as religion goes, right? How did you kind of basically, relearn? Like, what was your relearning journey looking like with your spirituality, or kind of finding your spirituality within following your religion?
okay.
So, well, one, you also asked. Do you want me to answer the question that you asked Yuri about the rise and fall?
You can answer whichever one's comfortable. I mean, I think we kind of hit on like the rise,
Mhm.
but if you feel like there's something that's missed, please touch on that too.
So no. I'll answer the second question, which was, what am I doing to relearn?
Mm-hmm.
Spending time with myself.
Yeah, that's the key.
And 9 times out of 10, like, I'm gonna hear it again, and it's gonna resonate with self. And there are gonna be frequencies, and there are gonna be moments in the flesh that align with self.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how am I learning that? Like, I'm learning to pay more attention to self. Like, what do your atoms say
No,
when you in this space?
asking yourself that tough question, probably, right? Like asking yourself the questions you might have ran from asking yourself and answering before,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
It's like I'm spending time being quiet. What does that look like? It means I'm never gonna bring up something that I ain't spent time with myself and that I've really thought about. You know, I'm not gonna bring it up in conversation. I'm not gonna be confident about it. And so I'm learning that as I get older, like, I want more moments with myself.
Bro.
It's like
Yeah.
moments,
time.
a life that allows me to actually sit with my anatomy, right? And so that's what I'm doing, is allowing myself more moments to really just
Sit in silence.
sit
bro.
and be like, what does self say?
Yeah.
And and bro, that's so hard for me right now, because where I work, a lot of the spaces that I take up, they're spaces that force a certain agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have to consciously ask myself, are you gonna risk all of this for the sake of self? And not even for the sake of self, but be like, are you willing to risk it all to be truthful
And that's what I
to self?
into that. do you feel like when you're starting to be truthful and diving into your relearning and spending time with yourself, you feel like are you betraying any parts of you that once was, or any kind of, but explain that.
Absolutely. Like, I still code switch. You know what I mean? Like, I'm learning that self, it actually desires to be the only type of him in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He don't want to look like everybody else. You know, self actually is not a head nodding ass nigga.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, actually self is not cool with everybody. He just laughs to make himself likable to fit into the space. And so I slip into that, but bro, that's something that I'm consciously even like I don't have to show up at 150 every day.
Yeah, I'm glad you don't show up on here on that bullshit.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not like, and so I'm learning, bro. Like I'm learning. Like I'm like even my job is 60 people in the room. 8 of them are black.
No, but
I'm not smiling and laughing at everything because y'all not funny.
No, but I say that to say I'm glad you show up here comfortable enough to just be yourself.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you got to do all that other shit, man.
So
But yeah,
to answer your question, Morris, I do fall back into it, and I think that if you are not conscious and aware of these types of conversations, then
yeah,
you're more what's the word?
susceptible.
Yeah.
That was a little. Yeah.
That's a big word for Elmo. But it's yeah.
We all learn.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, that you say that, because it's like learning who you are. You fall back into who you feel you're betraying sometimes. Okay, yeah. So it's just tapping into that spirituality, man, because something, like you said, I feel like for all of us here, it was a sense of maybe not tragedy, but when things fell apart, that we had to really connect with spirit, that we really found out that all the shit we felt was important at that time really wasn't, right? In a sense, because I feel for most people, you know, that's when you really get a chance to connect with the source, when you have nothing else to lean against. You know what I'm saying? Like I've fallen into that, but I've done a much better job, and I'm proud of myself of keeping God in my life when everything is great too. Good, bad, ugly, great in my life, right? Always praying. But it's just to Brandon's point, and that's part of the level up, when you take that journey and you grow spiritually, right? You tend to fall back into what you're used to, right? That's just your subconscious. It's what you've been comfortable with, right? But it's just like you're just shedding that as you go along, because you're gonna get sick and tired one day. And I hope it doesn't come to a point where you have a Kanye moment where it's crazy as hell, but you're gonna get tired. Yeah, you're gonna get tired of that. You're gonna ask yourself, what the fuck am I doing, right? And you're gonna enter a point where you wake up one day and you're just like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not code switching today. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you'll feel that liberation, and it'll continue you going. And that is the beauty of spirituality, is unshedding everything that is not you, so that you can be who you are, bro. Yep. And it's just, yeah, so tapping into that, it's a beautiful journey, man. I feel like I said, we're learning every day. It's not perfect. It's not meant to be. It can get fucking ugly. There's days, man, where it's tough. I'll say that. Like, it's really tough on the journey. But you know that as long as you continue to keep going and continue to, you know, put your best foot forward, like, there are no downsides to continue to exploring your spirituality. Like, there is literally no downsides. You're going to heal, you're going to grow, you're going to inspire others to do the same. So it's like,
as Yuri's giving his final thoughts, I think that when you start taking a step back and looking at kind of not only just your journey and your experiences, but kind of what they are shaping you for, kind of like, why did I go through that? right? And then, like I kept saying, like you mentioned that I started asking myself questions. Brandon, you went through something where you felt comfortable, and then it started breaking down. And then guess what you started doing? Asking yourself questions, right? And Asa, you all your life you've been asked pretty good questions.
Yeah.
And while you're asking yourself questions, and I think when you said I think he was Muslim, the brother that asked you the key question that kind of shaped a lot of what you're doing now, was what do you know about what you think you know, right? Is in living in that knowing, and you have to know, you have to ask questions to know. And before you can ask other people the question that you really need to know, you got to ask yourself it, right? And not to say that you have the answer, but the answer is that I need to find this answer out. So who or where can I go to kind of learn this and live in my imagination so that I can pluck it out and then it's reality, right? And so I'll say, Brenton, I would like you to give me your final thoughts after mine, and then Asa. But for me, spirituality and religion, you have to separate them, right? I feel like a lot of people live in religion without spirituality. And when you live in religion without spirituality, your journey is capped, for me. And this is just kind of how I feel. Because when you are living, religion itself, technically, to me, is like a blueprint on how you should govern yourself and how you think other people should be governing themselves, right? But spirituality is kind of like the shoes you put on, right? And the clothes you put on to kind of go through that journey. It's like going, if you know you're going to go hiking in the summer, you're going to wear some shorts probably, or long. It depends on you, right? It's your journey, right? I don't want to get ticks. So I'm going to wear long shorts or leggings or whatever, right? And then some people are like, I'm going to be hot. Right? Pants. Thank you. Thank you. Or pants. But if not, it's just, it's all different. It's all different. But the spirituality is kind of like how you prepare yourself to live in your religion, right? So I think you can live your life spiritually without religion. But I don't think it's really beneficial to live religiously without spirituality. And so that's kind of like how I view it. And I think there is a huge difference, but they both benefit you. They're both beneficial together. Right. So kind of what is your final thoughts on your spirit, not yours, but kind of spirituality and religion as a whole for you?
I have none. It's like, nah. You said it. Like you said something that stuck out. You said living in religion without spirituality caps your journey. I'm going to say it the same way. Like living in religion without spirituality is cap. You get what I'm saying? And living
I like that.
And
Put
living
that on the shirt.
And living in spirituality without spending time with your spirit is also cap.
Yep.
You know? And and shout out to this conversation, because it could be much longer.
Yeah, it can.
It could be much longer, because I can't wait to see some of the comments from people, the fake pseudo deep people. Man,
that's exciting because it brings different perspective.
Yeah.
I want to learn what other people feel, because like he said, we're speaking from one lens, right? Which is ours. So to learn different people's perspective, we'll learn where they're coming from, and it might teach us something. It might make us look within a little bit more. It might make us search for some answers. You know what I'm saying? To kind of make us think deeper on the whole thing. So it's beneficial. There's going to be, there is going to be that. But I feel like there's going to be some good. Glass half full type of,
Asa, what's your final thoughts on spirituality and religion?
Oh, man.
Though you said so much, and thank you for that, Magi.
Man. This was, my pleasure, man. I don't have any final thoughts. I just, leave some thoughts for people to keep thinking on, and,
We'll be thinking for a very long time.
Here we go. Let's go, Asa. Come on.
Just you guys are already said it. You know what I mean? Just about learning yourself.
Yeah.
But not being too bent on anything. It's like, I don't care if I learn myself. I don't care if I learn myself. Don't care if I live. Don't care if I die. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Nothing.
Ultimately, yeah.
Ultimately,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter, right? I'm living my purpose, right? My purpose is to be alive. And, right, in my knowledge base, I would say that when I'm no longer alive, I'm still going to be alive.
Right.
And so I'm cool. I'm not fully anticipating what the next moment has. And I'm not too bent on what has already happened. Right now, I feel good,
Yeah.
right? I can breathe. I got clothes. I got a car. I got everything I need right now. Right now,
To get where I'm going.
right? Everything I need right now. I'm not worried about what happened yesterday. I'm not worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Everything is taken care of right now. You know what I'm saying? And right now I'm happy. You dig? And so if I focus on the happiness, it'll probably be more in the next moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, hey, everything is love. Everything is beautiful. And yo, I'm gonna leave. This is the real last thought.
I knew
I'm
it. I
long-winded.
knew it. I was
This is
waiting
the
for
real
it.
last thought.
I was waiting
Because
for
this
it.
everybody needs to hear this shit, right? My mom used to say this to me every day growing up, to me and my brother, right? Word sound has power, right? Word sound has power. The things you say become real, whether for positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
So if you talk about your situation, like if something negative is going on around you and you talk about it out loud,
Yeah.
you're reinforcing it.
You're
right?
you're recreating that in your mind
Exactly.
over and over.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
yeah.
Acknowledging things in life that you don't really want to accept or that aren't really good for you, stating them, because here's the thing: the more you say things out loud, the more you reinforce your thoughts and your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sometimes just not saying it will kill the thought
Mm-hmm.
and kill the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But if you feel like lacking something you wanted and you keep talking, I don't got this, I don't got that, or this motherfucker hurt me, or something, you're gonna be recreating those feelings, recreating those moments, recreating those circumstances. So if you want good things, talk about it before it happens.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I always feel like you could tell a lot about a person by how they speak on a situation when it's negative, right? Or how they speak on their outlook on things, right? Because you could tell where they're at in their spiritual journey just by their outlook. So yeah.
Yeah. Just be vigilant.
Hey, man. Also, I appreciate you for coming. Shout out to
Word
him,
up.
the founder of the CAN Foundation, which y'all definitely need to go check out. And this man is way more, as you guys can tell, if you've been tuning in, way more than just the
We
founder.
gotta get a part 2.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have you
Anytime, man.
back, bro.
Anytime, man. Shout out to y'all brothers, man. This is an incredible platform, and this is much needed.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. So, Brandon, go ahead and kick us out.
Bet. Well, everybody, welcome and also goodbye from the ICU Bro podcast, a space dedicated to creating space for men of color, especially to just talk about some of the things that we don't generally get the space to talk about, like spirituality and religion. So shout out to everybody that tuned in today. Like I always say, we ain't trying to tell you a certain path. We just trying to give you some options to think about and trying to give you some space to just think about some stuff. So I'm Britton, 1/3 of the ICU Bro pod, and we out. I'm out.
Hey, it's your boy Mars, one of the #1 misfits. And make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you at the next one.
And it's your boy Yuri. Please, please, please share your perspective in the comments because I really want to see what y'all talking about. I want to see who you agree with, why, and just a little bit about your life too and your journey. I'll kick it off to Asa to say goodbye too to the folks.
Hey, peace, y'all. Much love, man. Everybody, man. Peace, peace.
Peace.